He came to me every Thursday. His name was Man, 32 years old, pale eyes, the kind that looked tired of being misunderstood. The first day he sat across from me, he said, "Doctor, why does Beta treat me so cruelly?" I thought it was the usual kind of heartbreak. But the way he said her name, like it still burned his tongue, made me curious. He told me Beta used to look at him like he was everything, and now she looked through him as if he were invisible. He said she had changed. She didn't laugh anymore, didn't reach for his hand, and every time he tried to talk about their future, she'd go silent. "She punishes me with her silence," he said. "And I keep begging for the noise." I asked him if she'd ever hurt him physically. He shook his head. "She hurts me in smarter ways." I told him maybe she was protecting herself. He smiled in a way that made me uneasy. That's what I told her husband once. I didn't understand what he meant then. He called Beta complicated, emotional, full of contradictions. The more he spoke, the more I saw he wasn't describing cruelty. He was describing consequence. Between sessions, I caught myself thinking about him. About how a woman could have that much power over a man's mind. It wasn't until the fourth session that I noticed something familiar in the way he described her perfume, her laugh, the way she tucked her hair when nervous. Still, I ignored it. I thought all lovers sound the same when they're guilty. At the end of one session, I asked him, "If she hurts you that much, why don't you leave her?" He looked me dead in the eye and said, "Because I'm the one who hurt her first." I told me everything in fragments, like a man unlearning his lies. Beta, he said, was married to someone powerful. A man who wore kindness like a uniform but never truly listened to her. She was lonely, suffocating in a life that looked perfect from the outside. Then she met him. Man, a friend first, then temptation. Their affair started in messages, small confessions that turned into meetings. He said she laughed more with him in 2 weeks than in years of marriage. I made her remember she was alive, he said, with pride and guilt tangled in the same breath. But love built on lies always rots. He began demanding more time, more proof, more love. When she couldn't give it, he accused her of using him. She said I was her escape, he told me. But I wanted to be her world. He didn't notice how his need became a cage until she started to pull away. She stopped answering, he said, his voice shaking. She said she couldn't live 2 lives anymore. That she was choosing peace. He laughed bitterly. "Peace means her husband, doctor. That's what peace always means." As he spoke, my chest tightened. His words painted a story I recognized too well. The excuses my wife gave for late night shifts. The laughter she shared with someone over texts she said were from colleagues. My wife's name was Sarah. But in his mouth, she was Beta. He described the same small scar near her collarbone, the same habit of biting her lip when lying. My hands went cold. I let him speak until he ran out of breath, until silence filled the room like smoke. Then he whispered, "She told me love shouldn't feel like punishment. But I punished her anyway." I nodded slowly, hiding the tremor in my jaw. He didn't know the cruelty he spoke of was sitting right across from him, trying not to fall apart. I didn't sleep that night. I watched Sarah as she lay beside me, her breathing even, peaceful. I wanted to wake her, to ask her why. But I couldn't, because I already knew. Every word Man said had been a confession and a mirror. I had been treating the man who broke my marriage. When Thursday came again, I went to work like nothing had changed. Man arrived on time, as always, unaware that the truth had already burned its way through both of us. I asked him how he'd been. He said he felt lighter after talking. He thought maybe he'd done the right thing by ending it. She wanted to tell him, he said, but I stopped her. I told her husband didn't deserve that pain. He looked at me then, maybe sensing something. "You ever been cheated on, doctor?" My throat tightened. I suppose anyone could be. He nodded, smiled sadly. "Then you know it's not the act that kills you. It's the moment you realize the person you loved was capable of it." He said he hadn't seen Beta in weeks. That she cried when they said goodbye. She said I was her biggest mistake and her truest love. Imagine being both. He laughed softly. I wanted to scream. When he left that day, I sat alone in my office for hours. Everything I believed about control, about ethics, about reason, gone. I wasn't the calm observer anymore. I was the subject, the betrayed husband, the foolish doctor. That night, I asked Sarah if she was happy. She said, "Of course," and smiled in that rehearsed, distant way that made me realize she was already gone, even while standing in front of me. Time passed. I stopped seeing Man as a patient. I told him he'd made progress, that he was ready to move on. Maybe I said it for him, maybe for myself. I didn't confront Sarah. I didn't shout, accuse, or beg. I simply withdrew. Silence became our language. She'd ask about my day, and I'd answer in one word. She'd reach for my hand, and I'd find a reason to move away. I became the man she once described to him, cold, detached, unreachable. Months later, she left. No fight, no closure. Just a note. You stopped looking at me long before I stopped loving you. I found it next to her wedding ring. I read it once, folded it neatly, and placed it inside Man's old file. Under diagnosis, I wrote, recovered from attachment trauma. A lie, like everything else. Sometimes, I sit in my office after hours, staring at the empty chair where he once sat. I think about how both of us loved the same woman, and both of us ruined her in different ways. I used neglect, he used obsession. Between the two of us, we taught her how to be cruel. I hear his voice echo in my head, the first thing he ever said to me, "Doctor, why does Beta treat Man so cruelly?" Now I finally understand. She wasn't cruel. She was broken by two men who both claimed to love her. Cruelty isn't always in the act. Sometimes, it's in the way we make someone forget who they were before us. Love doesn't end cleanly. It decays. It changes shape, hardens, hides. When I think of Sarah, Beta, I don't feel anger anymore. I feel pity, not for her, but for all of us who mistake passion for permanence. She once told him that love shouldn't feel like punishment. She was right, but none of us were innocent. I gave her the loneliness that sent her searching for warmth. He gave her the fire that burned her life down. Now, I live in the ashes of that story, quietly, professionally, pretending I've healed. But sometimes, when a new patient sits in front of me and speaks of betrayal, I feel the old sting return. Because I know the answer to the question that started it all. Why does Beta treat Man so cruelly? Because when love dies, it leaves behind its shadow. And shadows don't know mercy. We like to think heartbreak makes us wiser, but mostly, it makes us mean. It turns softness into survival. It teaches us to hurt before we're hurt again. Maybe that's what happened to her. Maybe that's what happened to me. I keep her file locked in the bottom drawer. Not as evidence, as memory. A reminder that even doctors can't cure the sickness of the heart. And sometimes, when I'm alone, I whisper her name, not out of love, but out of habit. Beta, Sarah, wife, patient, ghost, all the same now. We all think we're the victims in someone's story. But maybe, in the quiet moments after everything's gone, we realize the truth. We're just the villains who learned too late that love, in its purest form, was never supposed to survive us.